Here we are. We have Dr. Priscilla Kuser. Okay, she is industrial and organizational psychologist with us, and she's gonna give us a little glimpse of what is exactly industrial and organizational psychology is. But first of all, let's ask her who she is and what she actually does, and her little bit of her ultimate introduction with us. Thank you, Doctor.
No problem, Bhumika. Thank you so much for the opportunity to even do this interview. As Bhumika said, my name is Dr. Priscilla Kuser. I am based out of the US, and my training is in industrial and organizational psychology. And a lot of people tell me my background is unique because before becoming an industrial and organizational psychologist, I actually had the training and the experience in school psychology. And I worked in schools for about 10 years. So I am so excited I get to bring experiences I learned in the school system, working with organizations, working with systems, strategic planning, vision, mission, goals, employee relations, hiring, the onboarding process, the training process, professional development. I'm able to bring those consultation skills, collaboration skills, coaching skills into my current business, which is predominantly coaching, consulting, and training and development. Name of my company is Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions, and we work with micro business owners to help them with scaling their business by teaching them some strategies to improve their goals, their processes, and their operations. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so okay. If you want to tell something really about what exactly is industrial and organizational psychology, a lot of people actually don't know exactly what is, because it's a really unique field, and not people usually does expertise in it. So if you're the expert, you just have to tell us that what exactly this field is.
Okay, so I can start first with what industrial organizational psychologists do. So we are concerned with workplace behavior and focusing on applying those psychological principles to improve the workplace. But we also look at research methods that can help improve the overall work environment, organizational development, marketing and sales, and employee training. We also look at assessments, staffing, management, leadership development, teams, compensation, diversity, work-life balance, workplace safety, conflict resolution, program evaluation, and employee testing. So as you can see, there are a lot of things within the work environment that industrial and organizational psychologists do and to help organizations become even better.
So they act on the employees in the workplace, right? Apply psychological principles and research methods to improve overall work environment, including the performance, communication, professional satisfaction, and safety. Is that correct?
Yes, you're breaking up a little bit in there, but I heard about workplace satisfaction and safety. Yes, they do help with those things as well.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, is it really hard to get a job as an industrial organizational psychologist?
It is competitive for sure, and you do require some specialized training in order to take a role as an industrial organizational psychologist. And it also depends on which country you're in and then which part of that country, because not every country might have companies that have those positions available, right? And others might have those positions available, might just be one or two positions, and you're looking at 100 people applying for that one or those two positions, right? So you do get that competitiveness in there.
So is the industrial and organizational psychology actually in demand all over the world?
If it's in demand?
Sorry, as far as I know, there's a Bureau of the Labor Status Projects, 2.2% of the employment growth for the industrial psychologists between 2020 and 2030. So in that period, an estimated 100 jobs should open up, and industrial psychologists apply the principles of psychology to the workplace. So it will be a little bit broader scope. There is a broader scope in this field, I guess.
It depends on where those positions are opening up. So for the demand for industrial organizational psychologists, like you mentioned, that the outlook is very strong. So the US Labor Department predicts that the field is actually going to grow 13% between 2018 and 2028. So this means the demand for IO psychologists is definitely increasing. And there's a lot of benefits that companies are seeing from working with the IO psychologists. And I know that we're going to talk about benefits later on in this interview, so I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. So is industrial psychology actually a good career if the students opt for the industrial psychology instead of the clinical or the vocational or any other field of the psychology? Is it really a good career to choose to?
Oh, you put me in a tough spot there because I love them all, right? All of them are good careers. And it just boils down to what exactly it is you want to achieve in your life. What are your career goals and what are your personal goals? So with industrial organizational psychology, you can have a career as a business development consultant, as an executive coach, as an organizational effective manager, as a change management professional, a behavioral analyst within the workplace. You can be a strategic professional within the workplace, look at staffing and recruitment, being a manager of staffing and recruitment. You can be a policy officer. With clinical psychology, you can work in hospitals, you can work in schools as a clinical psychologist. And with both clinical psychology, industrial organizational psychology, and as well as school psychology or educational psychology, you can work in the university setting as well, right? So you can work in academia, you can work in research. So you have a lot of different options available for you, but it really does boil down to what are your personal goals and what are your career goals so that you can choose the correct field for you.
It's like the industrial organizational psychology jobs are ever growing, so some speciality within the field of psychology, right? So they find great job satisfaction in helping people improve their work processes and motivations, and which lead to the better individual experience in the workplace, right?
Yes, yes, they do.
So what are actually the roles of the industrial psychologist?
Besides working in, like I mentioned before, besides working in organizational settings, you can find IO psychologists working in colleges or universities or working in research, or working as faculty. So you can find them in different settings, and it is all different kinds of industries as well within business. So you, as I mentioned before,
yeah, actually they can recruit as well, right? They can employ, they can have a work in the employee training, development, and employee satisfaction, work life, and performance management, and organization development and management. They cover all these areas, right?
Yes, they can work in like the roles I mentioned before as a business development consultant. They can work in staffing and recruitment. They can help organizations create policies and revise policies. They can help with program evaluation within an organization. So they can take on different roles. It really depends on what the organization is looking for, because whatever the organization is looking for, they're going to advertise that position. It is not always phrased as an industrial organizational psychologist position, but you might see it as an executive coach, or organizational manager, a behavior analyst, a staffing and recruitment manager, or business development specialist. So you might see them as different titles, but when you look at the job description for the education required, that's where you're going to see that they're looking for someone who has a degree in IO psychology.
So how long does it take to become an industrial and organizational psychologist? Does it actually depend on the level of the dedication? I mean, majorly like IO psychology major can take following time to complete. The bachelor's program is already 4 years in general psychology degree. A master degrees program is generally requires 2 years, and doctorate program generally takes between 4 to 5 years. So it's really a long process to be an industrial organization psychologist, right?
It is for all the psychologies. So like you mentioned, you do have to complete your bachelor's degree. And most people who have doctorates in industrial organizational psychology, they completed a bachelor's in psychology. However, it's not necessarily a requirement, because for me, my bachelor's is in psychology. Then I have a master's in psychology, a specialist in school psychology, and my doctorate is in industrial and organizational psychology. So it really does depend on, when you're looking at your career changes, what changes do you need to be making so that you can move on to the next step? And in my case, I had the prerequisites so that I could have applied for a doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology. So I'm saying that to share this with those who are watching this, that you might have a bachelor's right now in linguistics, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't get a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. You're going to research the university, the college that you want to attend, and you're going to look at the prerequisites that they have. Some of them don't have that you need to have a bachelor's in psychology, but some might say that. So it just really boils down to you still having to do that research to find out. But like you mentioned, a bachelor's degree, depending on where you are in the world, that could be 3 to 4 years, sometimes even 6 years. Because if you're completing it full-time versus part-time, that plays a role in how long it takes you to get your bachelor's. Same thing with the master's. There's some master's programs that might be 18 months. There's some that might take up to 2.5 or even 3 years. And it depends on if you're doing full-time versus part-time. And then if you decide to pursue your doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology, then that could be another 3 to 6 years. And some of the doctoral programs do have research elements. So you do have a dissertation component to complete. Some might even have an internship component. Some might have both. So it's really looking in terms of that time commitment and also the financial commitment. Because as you know, regardless of where you are in the world, higher education is expensive. So you also have to look at, are you going to be able to afford it time-wise and financially to pursue this career?
Yeah. So what is actually, when it comes to the industrial and organizational psychology, so if we break these two key terms, we get industrial and organizational. So what is the basic difference between the industrial psychology and the organizational psychology?
So industrial psychology focuses on people, on the personnel that you have in your workplace, while organizational psychology focuses on how those people, how that personnel functions in the workplace and how the organization functions. So with industrial psychologists, they tend to work on recruitment, they work on selection, classification, compensation, performance appraisals, and training of staff. Whereas with organizational psychologists, they might more focus on the socialization aspects of employees within the workplace, how they interact with each other. They look at motivation, occupational stress, leadership skills, leadership development, group performance, and also organizational development. So you brought up an interesting point. Yes, you have the industrial side and then you have the organizational side. So when you're doing your degree in industrial organizational psychology, you're exposed to both sides of it. After you graduate with your degree, you then have the opportunity to determine, do I want to go after a position that focuses more on the industrial side, or do I want to go after a position that focuses more on the organizational side?
Okay. We actually heard that many of the patients that actually come, they have disorders, and they what the first thing they have in their mind, we can go to any hospital or any subspecialties who actually covers the clinical psychology first. So is there anything that why actually do companies hire the psychologist? They don't they need any other person, or what is exactly the need of the psychologist in the company?
So the need specifically for the IO psychologist for a company is when a company is wanting to find out more about what is happening with their employee productivity, right? Because as an organization, you're going to be sitting and you're looking at big picture for your organization. All organizations have goals. All organizations have their objectives within their strategic planning. So when you have your C-level executives looking at how is the company doing, that's where they might start to see that there are some issues or some deficits in productivity. And that can translate into you have certain departments not meeting their targets, not meeting their goals every quarter, right? And then you start to ask questions like, why? So they're going to look at hiring an industrial organizational psychologist to help to gain some information on what is impacting employee productivity. Then you might also have some companies that are struggling with getting the right talent through the door. And they know that they need help with their recruitment process, but they're not quite sure which part of the recruitment process they need help with. So an IO psychologist can come in and look at what they're currently doing and then help to make some suggestions for improvement so that they can improve their recruitment process and really get to hire the talent that they actually need for their company. Then there's also team functions. So you can have, the best people in the right positions as far as the company is concerned, but there's some team conflict. The teams are not working well with each other. And therefore, you can hire the IO psychologist to find out, okay, what is happening within the team dynamic that we need to pay attention to, and how can we improve these individuals working together so that you can actually accomplish the team goals. Then IO psychologists also help with resolving conflicts on a whole in the entire organization. So it might be a situation where you're getting a lot of complaints about conflicts within departments, conflicts within groups, conflicts within teams. And you're also seeing a lot of employees leave because they're tired of the conflicts that's happening within the organization. So when you have your C-level executive noticing certain patterns and trends, then they reach out to an IO psychologist to bring them on staff. They might be in a consultancy type position. So they come on staff for a certain amount of time to help the company to make those improvements and ultimately change and improve the systems. Then you have companies that hire IO psychologists to help with policy planning. They know that they need to put new policies in place, so they hire IO psychologists to help them with that policy planning, to help them with their training for their staff, the professional development opportunities, the continuing education opportunities, and help with analyzing organizations. And I have a client right now that we just did an analysis of his entire organization because he knew that there were things that he wanted to be improving on, but he wasn't quite sure what all those things were. So that's where I came in to help with doing that analysis of the organization and then come up with a plan to help him with moving forward. And then the last thing I'll mention is with IO psychologists, they help with company culture. So where morale might be low or job satisfaction might be low, and that starts to impact the overall culture of the organization. So the C-level executives might decide, hey, we want to bring in an IO psychologist to help us with, first off, identifying what our company culture actually is, and then helping everybody to get on board with what that company culture is.
Okay, so the tech companies also can be an example of this. Maybe they also hire them to understand the impact of their products on the general population.
With tech companies, yes, because IO psychologists can work in any industry.
Okay. So what are exactly the benefits to be an industrial and organizational psychologist?
Oh, this is
the most important.
I love this part. Like we were talking about earlier, and I said, I knew we were going to talk about benefits later. So the benefits of having an industrial organizational psychologist, oh my gosh, I am going to try to keep this as short as I possibly can because I can tell you so many benefits. So the first one, of course,
because there are a lot of benefits.
Oh, there's so many. So improving your recruitment strategy and methods, like I was mentioning before, really improving that recruitment strategy. And for a lot of companies right now, they're really trying to improve the way how they're hiring diverse talent to come into their companies. So IO psychologists are key people who can help you with improving your whole recruitment strategy and the methods that you're using. Efficient personnel selection. So IO psychologists can help you with truly selecting the talent that your company actually needs. Then they help with increasing employee productivity. they can help with boosting job satisfaction, because you want more employees to be satisfied in their job, improving the overall work environment and making it better, helping with that work-life balance for your employees, building effective teams, because when you have effective teams, they are very much so productive, and that increases your revenue, and companies love when their revenue increases. Then you have greater workplace cooperation. So IO psychologists, when you have them on board, they can help you with increasing that workplace cooperation. And as I mentioned before, defining your company culture, helping to improve the organization development itself, boosting that employee engagement, and development and coaching. Because at different stages in their employee journey, employees need coaching for different reasons. And IO psychologists, instead of going and coaching every single employee that you have on staff, what they tend to do is they coach the managerial staff and give them the tools and strategies they need to then help coach those who are in their departments. So those are some of the benefits that you have for hiring an IO psychologist.
Yes. Okay. What is exactly the scope of industrial psychology? Is there the future is really bright in this field?
Oh, the future is definitely bright in this field because, like we talked about earlier, the U.S. Labor Department predicts that between 2018 and 2028, the field is going to grow about 13%. And as people are looking at making changes in their companies, and like I mentioned, one of the big ones is diversity, equity, and inclusion. People are trying to have more diverse workplaces, more equitable workplaces, more inclusive workplaces. You bring on an IO psychologist who can help you with those things. And then you have companies who are trying to get their company to move to another level. So helping with that strategic planning, like what is going to be involved? What do we need to put in place to help us to continue to move forward so that we can continue to be competitive within our industry? And especially if your company is competitive on the international market, you want to be able to maintain that competitive advantage. So with industrial organizational psychology, like I said, you can work in any industry. And when you're doing those searches on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever is a job posting board that you're looking for, don't only search for IO psychology, but search for the other titles that I mentioned, like executive coach or business development consultant or specialist, change management professional, staffing and recruitment manager, a policy officer, because the scope is broad in terms of the titles being used and then the industries within which you can work.
Since industrial psychology is a study of the people at work and it's concerned with the entire spectrum of human beings, so its scope is in the entire process of the management dealing with the people at work. So really, it's really a bright future in this field, right?
It definitely is. Because business isn't going anywhere. You got new businesses opening up every day and older ones getting stronger. So
yeah. So is psychology actually a good degree for the human resources?
Yes, it is a good degree because it also depends on where you are in the world, and what the universities in your country might be offering. Some might not necessarily be offering an IO psychology degree, but they might have a human resources management degree. So again, you got to do a little bit of research to see what's available in your home country. And if you're willing to travel, where you're going to travel to and what that degree is going to look like. And thankfully, people are increasing their online options. So you might be able to find a university that offers IO psychology and also includes the human resource management training. So with IO psychology, you do get that training in human resource management. You definitely do. And IO psychologists are trained in assessing, evaluating, and improving practices that will impact like employee retention, selection, productivity, morale, organizational culture. So IO psychologists get that broad training that also includes some human resource management.
So the degrees that can help us pursue a career in the human resources are marketing and sociology as well, right?
Can you say that one more time?
I said other degrees that can help us pursue a career in the human resources that can be marketing and sociology as well, along with the psychology.
Maybe not necessarily the marketing, because with human resource management, with marketing, sorry, you're looking at how you're going to take the product or service that the company is offering and get customers or clients to come and purchase that. So you're really much so product or services focused. With human resource management, you're people and personnel focused and looking at issues related to employees.
Okay. So, what are the main areas of the work where the industrial and organizational psychologists do?
The main areas, I would say there are about 4. You can work in academia, so university and colleges. You can work in business. You can work in small companies, startup companies, medium size and large businesses as well. You can work in consulting firms. There's several all over the world. There are different consulting firms, or you can work in government.
It can be divided into the 3 links, I guess: the industrial, the organizational, the human factors. Right?
Well, it could be within the 2, the industrial and the organizational.
Okay. So, what are the main activities of industrial and organizational psychology? What they actually do?
The main activities. So they can look at attitude theory, management, and change, and assessing in those areas. They can help with career development, different employees wanting to elevate within an organization. They can help with looking at assessing consumer behavior and making sense of those results from consumer behavior so that organizations can make some changes in their advertising. And they also can look at the health and stress in organizations, assess what that looks like, and create a plan for how you can reduce the stress that employees might be facing. They can do individual assessments for specific managers. They can do assessments for teams and look at the results from those assessments to see where they're the strengths, where they're the deficits, and then create a plan for moving forward for improvement, for the individual and for the team. And looking at job evaluation and compensation. So helping with performance evaluations, looking to see how employees are performing and where they might have some deficits, where they might need some help in skill development, where they might need some additional training as well. And looking at developing leaders within the organization, helping them get the right leadership training so that they can really have the leadership skills necessary for their role, and also give some suggestions to the higher level management in terms of looking at someone's strengths and making sure they're actually in the role that matches their strengths, and if not, how can we get them into that area? Helping managers understand the performance appraisal and feedback process, what that is going to look like, or even creating one for their own company, then actually implementing it and then assessing the results. So those are some of the activities that IO psychologists get into when they're working within companies.
Actually, they do what they actually do is they study the worker attitudes and behaviors and evaluate the companies and conduct the leadership trainings. And the overall goal of this field is just try to understand human behavior in the workplace, right?
Yes, it is.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to give a little bit of the summary, what exactly are you psychologists? You can just tell.
Okay, so this was an absolute pleasure for those of you watching this. But Mike and I have been in communication for almost over 2 years, and this is the first time we're actually getting to see each other face to face. So we're both very excited about this opportunity. I've watched her grow with what she's doing with, women in psychology, global women in psychology. I'm so proud of what she's been able to accomplish and getting the incorporation for the company and moving forward. She's been doing amazing things. So I'm very much so excited to be a part of her interviews that she has going on. And if you're not already in the WhatsApp group, you definitely need to be in there. And if you want to learn more about me and my company, like I said, my company is Priscilla Kuster Consulting Solutions. You can see it up on the screen behind me. You can drop that name into Google and you will definitely find my company. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Alignable. So those are my top social media platforms. You can feel free to connect with me on there. I always love to connect with other business owners. I share tips and resources and some insider information, on my social media, because I'm all about helping other businesses to thrive. And I'm born and raised from Barbados, and I know how it is to have limited resources around you and trying to see how can you move forward without being able to access what you think is all available in the US, right? So I'm all about sharing information. So I also have a YouTube channel where you can get some additional tips as well. And then I have a blog where you can continue to get more and more tips. And very recently we launched our training platform. So that is called SOAR Training Institute. So you can find some additional courses on there, and we'll be adding some more over the next couple of weeks and months.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Priscilla Kuser.
No problem.
It was really glad to have you on this interview, to have this complete discussion on industrial and organizational psychology. Many thanks for giving your time.
No problem. I love being here. Thanks, Micah.
Okay.